Hello, everybody. One of the most critical aspects in an organization today is to raise productivity, to figure out a way that you can be more efficient in what you produce. So what is productivity, and why is it so important? Productivity is the amount of goods that you create, or services, but usually the amount of goods that you create with a given set of inputs. We use the words inputs and outputs a lot to talk about productivity. So it's the amount of outputs that you have given the amount of inputs. What causes productivity being more outputs with fewer inputs, is that if you can increase your outputs without increasing your inputs, or simply to maintain your level of outputs and increase your inputs. But in general, the best description is to create more goods and services with the same or fewer inputs. And a good example is if it takes 2 employees to produce a product, that is your basis. But if you can use 1 employee to create that product, you've increased your productivity. If you can use the same 2 employees and make 2 products, you've increased your productivity. It's always that balance between inputs and outputs. And why is productivity so important? Because if you can produce more with the same number of inputs, then you have more to sell, and therefore you make more money. Oftentimes you have to increase your inputs, your employees, your materials, in order to get more outputs. But if you can figure out a way to use the same or less amount of inputs and expand upon your output, then you have increased productivity, increased sales, increased profitability, hopefully in the long term. That's the goal of organizations. Why it's so important today in the United States is because foreign countries have cheaper inputs. And we've talked about that considerably. Wages for employees are much less in many other countries, and so the inputs are cheaper. Even if they produce the same amount of outputs as the United States does, given that their inputs are cheaper, their costs are cheaper, and their product can be priced cheaper, and therefore they're at a price advantage versus the United States. So the United States today has to figure out how to raise productivity in an organization. There's 3 things that you can do. First is that you can use technology. And technology is really the conversion practice. It's the conversion from an input to an output. So if you're going to mow a lawn, back in the day, you used to have to use a manual lawnmower, which means you had to push it. And that was the input. The output was the cut lawn. Then they went to an automatic mower. And so from there, you can do much more lawns, given that it's now automatic. It's powered by gas. And so that technology, being the motor, made the input and output conversion much more efficient, and you can, again, produce more. Technology is 1. 2 is redesigning work processes. So if you look at the employees that you have, which is your input, and if you figure out a way for them to work more efficient, if you can eliminate regulations, if you can eliminate rules that don't translate into higher productivity, if you can eliminate what we call bottlenecks, which is either some bureaucracies or some actions that they take that don't yield results, if you can eliminate all of those actions that an employee is required to take that don't add value to the process, then you can have a more efficient work practice, and therefore they may be able to produce more. Or you have fewer inputs or fewer employees. Last but not least is increasing the efficiency of employees. So you've changed the work practices. Now you can increase the efficiencies of employees. Motivation is one, providing them with higher wages or more time off if they're more productive. Sending them to training classes to develop skills so that they're much more efficient in the process that they do. Giving them skills on customer service and attitude, all of which can transform the way that they do their work. Giving them time management skills so they come to work on time and stay until the very last minute of their shift. So there's 3 aspects that you can look at to raise productivity. You can use technology, redesign the work practices, and increase the efficiency of employees. All 3 will reduce the inputs, increase the outputs, and allow an organization to increase their productivity, increase hopefully their productivity, and their profitability. And as a result, then employees, even though they're paid higher, will be able to maintain employment in the organization. It's great talk on productivity. We'll talk more about it, and I certainly wish you the best.